90 years ago, in the darkest days of the Great Depression, the United States made a promise. It said, if you work hard, pay your dues, and grow old, you won't be abandoned to poverty. That promise was Social Security. It was bold in 1935, and it's still bold today. But as Social Security turns 90, the questions feel sharper than ever. Can America keep the promise? Will the next generation get back what they're paying in? Or are we on course for the biggest cut to retirement benefits in U.S. history? Stay with me. By the end of this video, you'll know how Social Security began, why it worked, where it's under pressure, and which choices, hard choices, could save it. Here's the straight truth. The trust fund that helps pay retirement benefits is projected to run short around 2033 if nothing changes. When that happens, the program can still pay most benefits from ongoing payroll taxes, but not all. The best estimate is a cut of roughly 20% across the board. For millions who rely on Social Security as their main source of income, a sudden cut like that is not a trim. It's a shock. Rent, groceries, medicine, heat in winter. Everything is more expensive. For many seniors, many people with disabilities, and families who've lost a primary earner, Social Security is the difference between getting by and going under. To understand how we fix Social Security, we have to remember why it exists. In the early 1930s, America's economy collapsed. Banks failed. Jobs vanished. There were no federal retirement benefits, no guaranteed safety net. For older Americans, poverty rates were brutal. By some estimates, around half lived in poverty. President Franklin D. Roosevelt and Congress created Social Security as part of the New Deal in 1935. The model was simple and powerful. Workers and employers would each contribute a percentage of wages every paycheck. Those contributions, payroll taxes, would fund benefits for retirees, later for surviving spouses and children, and eventually for people with disabilities. There's a famous first beneficiary, Ida Mae Fuller of Vermont. She received the first monthly check in 1940. She paid in a modest amount over a few years and collected benefits for decades, living to 100. It became a story Americans repeated because it captured something emotional. The system wasn't just math, it was a social contract. Most people think retirement, and they're right, but it's more than that. Today, Social Security pays benefits to retired workers, spouses, surviving children, and people with disabilities. For a typical retired worker, the monthly benefit covers a significant share of basics. For millions, it's more than half of their income. It's also the largest anti-poverty program in the United States. Without it, the poverty rate among seniors would more than triple, jumping from around 10% to nearly 40%. That's why the program is consistently one of the most popular in America, across parties, across generations. People don't see it as a handout, they see it as an earned benefit they paid into. Here's the design choice at the center of the current challenge. Social Security is largely pay-as-you-go. The payroll taxes workers pay today are used to pay benefits to today's retirees. When the baby boom generation was in its peak working years, the system had many workers supporting relatively fewer retirees. But America's demographics changed. People live longer, birth rates fell. The ratio of workers to beneficiaries shrank from well over a dozen per retiree in the early years to about 3 today, and drifting toward 2 in coming decades. That means less money coming in for each person drawing benefits, unless you change the tax rate, the benefit formula, or the retirement age. This isn't the first time Social Security faced a near-term shortfall. In 1983, leaders in both parties, President Ronald Reagan and Speaker Tip O'Neill, cut a bipartisan deal. They gradually raised the full retirement age. They increased payroll taxes. They taxed part of Social Security benefits for higher-income retirees. Those changes bought decades of solvency, but everyone involved knew it wasn't a forever fix. They had essentially pre-funded the retirement of the baby boomers and smoothed the path for a while. The demographics kept moving. Now the boomers are retiring in large numbers and living longer. The math is pressing again. Let's clear up a few myths that confuse the debate. Myth: Social Security is going bankrupt. There will be no benefits. Fact: even if trust fund reserves run down, ongoing payroll taxes still cover most benefits. The problem is a gap, not a total wipeout. Myth: If Congress just cut waste or foreign aid, Social Security would be fixed. Fact: Social Security is financed by its own dedicated taxes. Fixing the gap requires changing those taxes or the benefit rules. Other spending categories don't simply swap in. Myth: only retirees care about Social Security. Fact: younger workers care because their paychecks fund it now, and they'll rely on it later. When trust in the system falls, support for the whole social contract weakens. Funding comes primarily from the payroll tax that workers and employers split. For most earners, every dollar of wage income is taxed up to a set annual cap. Earnings above that cap aren't subject to Social Security payroll taxes. Benefits are calculated by a formula based on a worker's lifetime earnings, adjusted for inflation, with a tilt that replaces a higher share of income for lower-wage workers. That tilt is intentional. Social Security wasn't designed to be a luxurious pension. It's the foundation, a floor, on which people build savings, pensions, or 401ks. But for millions who don't have big savings, the floor is the house. Picture a retired couple on a fixed income. They planned around a certain monthly benefit. Then, with little warning, benefits are cut by about 1/5. Maybe they still pay rent, but they skip the new prescription. Maybe they cut back on groceries or cancel a dental appointment. For a person with a disability, a cut can mean losing critical transportation or equipment. Economists can argue about percentages and projections. Families live in hard dollars. That's why this debate gets intense. The consequences are not abstract. There's no secret lever in a back room. There are 4 families of fixes, and any real solution probably uses more than one. Raise more revenue. That can mean a small increase in the payroll tax rate. Or it can mean raising or eliminating the wage cap so higher earners pay on more of their income. The upside: it protects scheduled benefits. The trade-off: workers and businesses pay more, and debates over fairness and growth get louder. Slow the growth of benefits. That can mean adjusting the formula for new retirees, tweaking cost of living increases, or means testing so the highest income seniors get less. The upside: lower cost growth. The trade-off: future retirees, especially middle earners, feel the squeeze. Change the retirement age. Because Americans live longer on average, some argue the full retirement age should rise again. The upside: fewer years of benefits per person. The system costs less. The trade-off: workers in physical jobs or with shorter life expectancy bear the brunt. Invest differently or diversify. Some proposals would allow a portion of contributions to be invested in broad index funds, or create a larger, collectively invested reserve. The upside: potentially higher long-run returns. The trade-off: exposure to market risk and big political fights about governance. Every one of these levers has winners and losers. The question isn't whether there's a solution. The question is which trade-offs we choose. If the fixes are well known, why the delay? Because touching Social Security is politically dangerous. Raising taxes is unpopular. Cutting benefits is unpopular. Changing the retirement age is unpopular. And doing nothing until the last minute has become a bipartisan habit in Washington. But the math punishes delay. The longer leaders wait, the more abrupt and painful the changes must be. In the 1980s, Congress moved before checks bounced. The same will be true now. The earlier the action, the gentler the fix. There's a generational fairness debate at the heart of Social Security. Younger workers ask, will the system be there for me? Older Americans answer, we paid in for decades. We earned this. Both statements are true. The design of Social Security depends on trust between generations. Today's workers pay for today's retirees, confident that tomorrow's workers will do the same. That trust is a kind of invisible infrastructure. You don't see it on a balance sheet. But when it cracks, the whole structure shakes. Meet Maria. She worked 35 years as a home health aide. The pay was modest. The work was hard. The retirement plan was hope. For her, Social Security isn't a supplement. It's the budget. A 20% cut isn't a line item. It's the difference between keeping her apartment and losing it. Now meet Aaron. He's 30. He works in logistics, and he's skeptical. He sees the deductions on every paycheck. He hears about a future cut, and he wonders, will I ever see this money again? If the system fails him, his trust in more than just Social Security crumbles. He questions whether the game is rigged. Maria and Aaron need each other. The system needs both of them. That's the social contract. You'll hear dramatic language: bankrupt, insolvent, gone. That language hides more than it reveals. Even in a worst-case scenario where reserves are depleted, payroll taxes keep flowing in every month. Those dollars fund the majority of benefits. The gap is real, but it's a gap, not a cliff. The danger isn't that Social Security disappears. The danger is a sudden cut that lands hardest on people who can least absorb it, and a political crisis that erodes trust in the idea that government can keep its word. It's tempting to focus only on retired workers, but Social Security is also disability insurance and survivor's insurance. A young parent who dies leaves behind more than grief. They may leave a family without income. Social Security survivor benefits help fill that hole. A worker who becomes disabled doesn't just lose a job. They may lose their footing in life. Disability benefits help them stand again. Any reform has to remember these pillars. They're part of the promise, too. The 1983 rescue of Social Security wasn't perfect, but it showed something important. Compromise is possible when the stakes are high. Lawmakers raised the retirement age very gradually. They increased the payroll tax rate slightly, and they began taxing benefits for higher-income retirees. Nobody loved the deal. Conservatives disliked the tax hikes. Liberals disliked the benefit trims, but together they protected the program for nearly 50 years. That's the lesson. Social Security can survive if leaders are willing to make tough calls before crisis hits. As we approach the early 2030s, the menu of fixes is again familiar. Raise or eliminate the cap on taxable wages. Adjust benefit formulas for higher earners. Increase payroll tax rates slightly across the board. Raise the full retirement age again. Each option comes with trade-offs. There is no magic fix, only choices. Beyond the math, Social Security carries a symbolic weight. It says that in America, if you work, you earn security. That you won't be cast aside when you're old, or if you're struck by disability. It's an insurance program against risks none of us can fully control. The program's resilience comes not from its spreadsheets, but from the sense that it reflects American fairness. You pay in, you get something out. Everyone is covered. Everyone contributes. It's solidarity disguised as a line on your paycheck. 90 years is a long time. Since 1935, Social Security has paid out tens of trillions of dollars in benefits. It has helped lift tens of millions out of poverty. It has given working Americans dignity in old age, security after disability, and hope after the loss of a loved one. It is, by many measures, the most successful social insurance program in American history. But anniversaries are not just about celebrating the past, they're about deciding what comes next. So here we are, Social Security at 90. It's not bankrupt, it's not vanishing, but it is at risk if America waits too long. The fix isn't mysterious, it's math and choices. The question is whether today's leaders will do what leaders did in 1983, put aside the easy sound bites, and take the tough steps that secure the program for another half-century. Because this isn't just about numbers. It's about Maria, the retiree who depends on her check to keep her home. It's about Aaron, the worker who wonders if the system will be there for him. It's about trust between generations. Social Security is America's promise. At 90 years old, the promise is still alive. The challenge is making sure it survives to its 100th birthday and beyond. History shapes every debate we have today. If this video helped you see Social Security in a new light, please consider subscribing to History That Matters. Liking this video or leaving a comment lets us know what you'd like us to explore next.